Discipleship Training, where we're going through the life of David, and we're in 2 Samuel chapter 19, and we're going to look at verse 34. So last week we left off with that rich friend of King David who met him in the wilderness with a great amount of supplies, enough for an army. And now he has shown back up to escort David across the Jordan River back into Jerusalem as king. So David wants Barzillai to come and live with him, and I'm assuming he's living in some kind of palace and be a part of his court. But Barzillai declines, and is it enough? It is enough just to have you, David, back as king. And I want to ask you, is it enough for you to have Jesus as Savior? For years, I wanted money more than I wanted the Lord. Maybe you want a career. Maybe you want a spouse. Maybe you want children. What do you want more than the Lord? See, the thing is, when you lose your life, you find it. Going after those things, yeah, we've got to have goals. Yes, we have to have, something to live for and something to strive for. But see, if you want that more than you want the Lord, then you'll never get those things. Because the Lord only lets you have things as you put Him first, and because you have to get your priorities right. So is He your Lord? See, I've been asking myself, yes, He's my Savior, but is He my Lord? I know there's areas in my life that He's not Lord. And so I'm trying to, ask Him to help me to make Him Lord in those areas that I struggle. So is He enough for you? Or are you still searching and going after the world because He's not enough? So, and Barzillai in verse 34, and Barzillai said unto the king, how long have I to live, that I should go up with the king unto Jerusalem? See, David's wanting to honor Barzillai, but the man doesn't want honor. He's trying to honor the king. He's trying to let David, in some sense, right, be the king, be the Lord of his life. So he's saying, I'm old, and I just wanted to help. I just wanted to honor you. He's not looking for anything in return. And listen, I've lived long enough to know most of our motives are driven by what's good for us. I mean, let's just take the gloves off, right? Okay. And serving Jesus is literally, this is a picture. Barzillai serving David is a picture of us serving Christ. Well, are you doing it to get something out of it? See, I remember, tithing. Most people don't tithe. We tithe. Let me tell you something. It was hard. We tithed when we didn't have food to eat, and I am not joking you. I had to come to a point where I was willing to let that money, and I'm stingy. All right, when I say, $10 was my limit for what I would spend on clothes. I've had to up that to about $20. But like Jeff always says, when a penny leaves my fingers, Abraham doesn't, Lincoln doesn't have a beard on. Okay. And I remember, tithing that, we were in need, right? So we tithe, and yes, and I looked at God to meet our needs, but really, and a lot of times I was struggling with that because I was tithing so I could get back. So what are our motives? And now God was merciful to me, and He taught me an awful lot about money during those days. I'm telling you, He did. Yes. But see, Barzillai, he's saying, I'm not looking for honor and recognition. I'm happy with my station in life. I'm happy that I'm able to help. I'm happy that I was able to pull together all these supplies to help you, David, and the people with you out in the wilderness. And I'm not interested in spending the rest of my life, living with you. And here's the key: he's content with who he is and what he's done. And I've told you recently, even recently, the Lord has had to get me in check because, in spite of what some people might think, I'm not that old and I still have a lot of years left to do a lot of things. And I still have a drive to work and to make money. All right. I've always been a hard worker. Now, I've not always been smart but I've been willing to work. I started working at 15 years old at a nursing home, and you talk about the nastiest, dirtiest, humbling work on the face of the earth. You go work at a nursing home. It's disgusting. So I've never been afraid of hard work. But so even now, see, I know the Lord called me. He told me that He was getting me out of insurance to put me in full-time ministry. But do you know, see, my flesh still wants to go work. My flesh still wants to go to a job. My flesh still wants to make money. I have never drawn one red cent from this church. But see, my flesh still wants to go work. So what I'm asking is, are you content with who you are in Him and what He has called you to do? See, I've had to check myself. I've had to surrender that. I've had to say, here, Lord, okay, my flesh wants to do this, but I know this is not what you called me to do. So I've had to let that go. And I think this is something that, a lot of us fight, all through our lives, about what we want to do versus what He's wanting us to do. And what His plan is far superior than our plan every time. And God showed me that through our recent Freedom Readers, where the Lord showed me this very thing through Abraham, and how Abraham didn't go to Canaan and build a city. God told him that land was his. But he didn't go to Canaan land and take it over and build a big city. And he didn't build monuments unto Abraham because this is my land. He didn't do that. He built an altar. He built an altar and he prayed and he worshiped. And so, but see, what we want to do is build an altar unto ourselves. And I'm telling you, this is how my brain thinks. I want to leave money for my kids. I want to leave money for my grandkids. That's what the Bible says, that a good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children. My grandfather left me an inheritance, and I want to leave my kids an inheritance. There's nothing wrong with that. But see, what is my real calling? Is my real calling to work a big job and to get a lot of money? See, I have to surrender that to the Lord. Okay, I know you said it's good that we should give an inheritance to our children's children, but Lord, I have to trust you to do that. I have to trust you to provide in however you're going to provide according to what you have called me to do. So God said, Abraham, this is your land. But Abraham didn't go and strike out and say, look, everybody, this is my land and this is my city and all this. No, he exalted God. And I feel like God said to me through that for me to focus on Him and His call on my life and to honor Him and stop dreaming of what I could do otherwise. Like business aspirations, because business is really no longer my calling. It was my calling. He literally called me, opened the doors, told me what to do, where to go, what to job to work. He literally opened the doors, which has now blessed my children. Because Robbie is now my partner. That's how they make their living, off of what God told me to do. But see, now my bookmark has moved. I just love that. My bookmark has moved. I'm in a new chapter. And now I have to be content with that new chapter. So let me just say this. It wasn't easy for me to relinquish that. See, when we read about Jacob struggling with God, have you ever thought, how do you struggle with God? Well, I can tell you, I struggle all the time. When we read that for Freedom Readers about Abraham, and God started speaking to me, guess what? I started wrestling with God because my flesh wants to go do something, but my spirit's wanting to be in submission to God. So I bet I wrestled with that. If not a day, maybe 2 days, I wrestled with that until guess what? I finally gave up. That's really what I had to do. I had to give that up. because I've got plans and aspirations that I probably don't talk about here. But see, in my heart, my mind, I'm always thinking, how can I make money? How can I do this? How can I do that? I had to give that up, and it took me probably a couple days to wrestle that out and to give up. So, verse 35, I am this day 80 years old, and how can I discern between good and evil? Can thy servant taste what I eat or what I drink? Can I hear any more the voice of singing men and singing women? Wherefore then should thy servant be yet a burden unto my Lord the King? What he's doing, he's gracefully bowing out of the offer that the king has so graciously offered him. He's bowing out gracefully with these arguments that really David can't refuse. Okay, because what he's saying is, I'm an old man. All right, and he's past living the high life, and if you will, and he would just be a burden to David. He feels so. He just wants to, go. He just wants to go home and live out his life and die quietly. That's what he's saying. And so that verse 36, thy servant will go a little way over Jordan with the king. And why should the king recompense it with me with such a reward? What he's saying is, I want to walk with you to honor you, David, because I love you and I'm loyal to you. But I'm not going to go to Jerusalem with you because I don't deserve this kind of reward. There's your humility. See, we all struggle with pride. Every single one of us. Don't lie to me. We all do. We want to be acknowledged. We want to get the pat on the back. All right. And Jesus wants to do that for you, but only as you walk with him. So he says, I'm not going to go to Jerusalem with you. I don't deserve this kind of reward. I have simply shown you respect and honor. You don't owe me anything. What does Jesus owe you? We didn't deserve it. Listen, looking back over my life, I can tell you flat out, I don't deserve anything I've got. I don't deserve the husband I got. There's nothing I've gotten that I deserve. So, verse 37, let thy servant, I pray thee, turn back again, that I might die in my own city and be buried by the grave of my father and my mother. But behold, thy servant came home, let him go over with my lord the king, and do to him what shall seem good unto thee. So again, at his age, he just wanted the simplicity of a quiet, peaceful life. He knows he's nearing the end. He wants to be at home. And what it reminded me of was that old country song by Hank Williams Jr., that all my rowdy friends have routed on down. Okay. And you know what? That's what happens. You get a little older and you just route on down. Right. And that may not be such a good example, but that's the truth. And my brother he's about to have it in June. He has all his high school friends over every year to his house because they live on a lake. They live on property that was my grandfather's, and two lakes, and they're all in old cars, and so they bring their old cars and they just have a cookout in old cars and all this stuff. Well, let me tell you, I went a couple years ago, and he's 12 years older than me. So some of the people I knew, some I don't. And but anyway, I'm like, these men are rallying on down, okay, because they're getting old now, and a bunch of them have died. And one of them, it was so funny, because one of them I had a crush on when I was a kid, okay, and I did not even recognize him. I mean, he looks like the Walking Dead, right? And so it just happens to all of us, right? So you young people, I got news for you. It's going to happen like that, and you're going to be old as the hills. Do I get an amen? It happens before you know it. Before you know it. So Barzillai, he makes a very sweet declaration, I think. He says, I want to be buried with my parents. Now, I want to be buried with my parents, but there's no room. Okay, my dad bought some cemetery plots. My brother's going to be buried there because he's the next in line, and there's no room for my sister and I. Now, that's where I would like to be buried, but there's no room. So I'm going to have to go someplace else. But see, evidently, he loved his parents greatly and he wants to be buried by them. And praise God, it doesn't matter where our bodies are buried. And believe me, I thought a lot about this because Jeff's from Illinois. And I thought, and he almost died. And I thought, now where would I bury him? You know, I don't want to send him to Illinois because he's lived here more than, way more years than he's lived in Illinois. But he's from Illinois. I don't want to be buried in Illinois. I want to be buried here because this is where I'm from. So that's a quandary. Now we'll just get cremated. I don't believe in cremation. The Bible does not talk about cremation. I mean, the Jews are not cremated. The body is sacred. Now, can God raise up the ashes that we sprinkle? Sure, He can. But I don't think that's God's way. Now, I know that money's a factor. And I know it costs a whole lot of money to bury. And if you can't bury and you have to cremate, then I understand that. And God is bigger than that. And He can certainly pull all those ashes back together. But for me, I don't want to take any chances. So would you please make sure that I get buried? Okay. And I made sure that I told my kids that I want to be buried. All right. So, and I have to tell you this. This was really funny. So we had a man and his son used to come here, and their son, I knew his mother because the son went to our school, and because we used to have a Christian school, and she had died, and they had moved away, and then they came back, and they came to our church, and so they wanted us. They held her ashes for a couple of years. So they wanted Jeff and I to go up in the mountains, to go up to the Amicalola Falls and sprinkle her ashes. So we did. We all went up there, and I'm telling you, it was a beautiful, sunny, still day. And we got up there, and I'm telling you, she was in a plastic bag. And as soon as her son opened that bag and flung that, a wind came out of nowhere, and those ashes went all over all of us. I mean, then I had ashes in my hair, and my face, everywhere. So that's just a little side note now. Side note there. But then Barzillai makes this statement. He says, "I'm too old to receive this honor. See, I don't need it." Okay, but would you please let my servant Kim Homer, and it is not specifically stated who this servant is, but it is believed by some that he might have been Barzillai's son. Now, I don't know, because I don't know why you call him a servant if he's your son. So, where he used to could become the son. Well, that's true. That's true. You could become family. Yes, like Abraham, in the example of Abraham, he was because he didn't have any children, so he was gonna make his servant, his son. So I don't know. No, we're just not sure who this is, but it was in ancient Near Eastern custom that you did not hand another man's child to the king. You would only give over your own son to the king. So that's one reason a lot of scholars think that this was his son. But if he was my son, I wouldn't call him my servant. I don't know about you, but my kids never were very good servants to me. Okay, so I was more their servants. So you only entrusted your own, and this is the language that a father was offering his own son to a king that he trusted. So, whatever you come up with. All right, verse 38. And the king answered, King Homer shall go over with me, and I will do to him that which seems good unto thee, and whatsoever thou shalt require of me, that will I do for thee. All right, so this is David talking, and David is a kind and caring man. He's not a brute. He's now in his younger years, you see that he's routed on down. Okay, because in his younger years he was, could be pretty volatile. But as he's grown older and lived life, and life's been tough for him, okay, you see him rowdying on down, and he understands, and he acknowledges Barzillai's request. And listen, is there any greater honor that the king would take your servant or take your son and into their own household? No. Is there any greater honor that Jesus Christ has let you come into his house? No. Well, because I think back then it's just even being fed. Oh, absolutely. Well, and taking care of them. This is exciting. And listen, and just like in first Sunday school, when we talked about, when you said, see, we take being, listen, I took seeing being for granted. You know why? Because I didn't have the knowledge to back it up. I really didn't understand what it was all about. Now I don't take it so much for granted. Okay. I hope I don't take it for granted at all. But see, we take things for granted because we don't have the knowledge. And so this is phenomenal, and that's like Donald Trump saying, "Come, you be a part of my family, and you'll live with me, and you'll travel with me, and where I go, you will go." Now you talk about a life changer. But let me tell you something: your life's going to change if you become part of Donald Trump's family. All right, and even if Barzillai, was wealthy, which he was, and even if he was in prominent standing, which he was, to still have the blessing of a king like this is a life changer. All right, and so keep this in mind, because Barzillai took a great chance, and he could have gone the other way had Absalom won. See, we forget that. Oh, there was a civil war, and Barzillai chose to go with David. What if Absalom had won? Okay, Absalom probably would have had him killed, because he supplied all these. He supplied David and all the people with him with all these provisions. So Absalom probably would have killed him. So he took a great chance. All right, and David's wanting to reward him for taking that kind of chance. All right, verse 39. And all the people went over Jordan, and when the king was come over, the king kissed Barzillai and blessed him, and he returned unto his own place. All right, so it seems that Barzillai is sort of the star of the story, right? But I think it also shows David's humility, because Mephibosheth was just as loyal. Remember, we talked about, I think, Mephibosheth last week, and Mephibosheth got accused, right, by Ziba of betraying David and all that. We went through that, and so I think this shows David's humility, or not humility, but humanity, because Mephibosheth was just as loyal. But see, he couldn't do the things that Barzillai could do because he was lame at his feet. All right. And so he was very limited because of his disability. So Barzillai was able to put his money where his mouth was. And David saw that, and he greatly appreciated it. And in turn, he's returning the favor, right, to Barzillai. And now he's going to bless Barzillai's son or servant, whoever he is. And for the king, then it said, let's see, and the king kissed Barzillai. Now, this is not weird. This is not gross. In some European countries, and I saw it myself when I was over there, and I can't remember. I went to Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. I can't remember where it was that I saw it. But I saw young men David's age. Now, they didn't kiss on the lips. They really didn't even kiss the cheek. You just pretend to kiss, and it was so weird to me. Just that'd be like James and Robbie, doing that, and or Ben and Colton doing that. I mean, it was kind of weird, I admit, but that was their custom, and so what I'm saying is, see, this is where we can't read the Bible through Western eyes, because that's weird to us, but that's normal to some cultures. And so it ticks me off to no end when people bring up David and Jonathan and try to say they were homosexuals. That is such bull. Okay, they were, and I go back to this all the time, that they were not homosexuals. People who say that are ignorant people who have never served anybody but themselves. But see, if you've never served anybody but yourself, you don't know that camaraderie. You don't know that feeling of respect. You don't know that feeling of I have teachers that, not public school, but I went to a Christian school. I have teachers that are long gone, that are dear to my heart today. That's what I was going to say. It's an endearment. It's an endearment. Yeah. And I have, over the years, I have people that have poured into my life that think highly of and that I love and that I'm fond of. And I know from serving in the military, even though I wasn't in war and even though I never got to a ship, I still have people that were good leaders and I respected them. And had we gone to war, I would have followed them. I would have done what they said because they were, maybe not Christians, but they exhibited something that you could respect. And we're all looking for that. It's called a mentor. We all need mentors. We need somebody to lead us and teach us and guide us. And Jonathan stuck with David through thick and thin. Jonathan stuck with David when his father was trying to kill him. So there was nothing crazy there. There was no gay junk going on. This was strictly friendship and deep devotion and loyalty. And so do not read the Bible through the eyes of your Western upbringing. Read the Bible as if you were a Jew and learn what the Jewish customs were and learn how they think. I love to say, thanks. Okay, what did the Jews think about this? How did the Jews see this? How did they live? What was their lifestyle? Because that's who the book is written. Is written for all of us, but that's in the context of how it was written. But again, if you've never been out in the world, if you've never gotten to know anybody, if you're isolated in your room like all these kids are today, they have no clue what I'm talking about. They don't know what that loyalty feels like. They don't know. They don't know what it's like to work for an employer that you highly respect and you want to go to work and you want to do a good job because you respect that person. See, they don't know anything about that. And that's so sad. Oh dear. All right, verse 40. Then the king went on to Gilgal, and King Homer went on with him, and all the people of Judah conducted the king, and also half the people of Israel. So in verse 12, somewhere I can't remember. David was crossing the Jordan. Remember, he crossed the Jordan on a ferry. Now, if you've ever been on a ferry today is run by a motor. Okay, and but back then it would have been a huge wooden barge, flat bottom, guided by poles, right? Men putting the poles in the shallow river and doing it that way, or oars, or they might have had a tow line. Okay, men pulling on the tow line. So whatever. David is now, and I think that's important. Because as you read, you need to be flowering it out. You need to be putting yourself there. You need to be thinking about, okay, what kind of ferry was he on? Was he on a motorboat ferry? Was it full of cars? Get it in your mind so you can better grasp it. So David is now being formally escorted back towards Jerusalem. And then here comes the tribe of Judah. Now we know that David is from the tribe of Judah. Who else is from the tribe of Judah? Jesus is from the tribe of Judah. So now the tribe of Judah is going to step up, and they're going to take the lead in escorting him home. And they're the ones that are physically surrounding him. They're honoring him. They're walking him back into the land as the king. And then King Homer, which may be the son of Barzillai, I don't know. He's traveling now with David as a sign of loyalty and reward. But notice this little detail that most of us would likely just skip right over. It said, let's go back to verse 40. It says, the king went on to Gilgal, and King Homer went on with him, and all the people of Judah conducted the king, and also half the people of Israel. I thought about that. Why half? Why not all of Israel? All right. And so only half of the northern tribes are present right here at this event with David. That means the other half is missing, and they're not happy about it. All right, and we're going to see that. So let's go on to verse 41. And behold, all the men of Israel came to the king and said unto the king, why have our brethren, the men of Judah, stolen thee away? and have brought the king and his household and all David's men with him over Jordan. So Israel is not. And y'all know what I'm talking about when I say Israel. Those are those northern tribes. So Israel's leaders, the northern tribes, they are mad. And they confront David, and they don't like the fact that Judah, the tribe of Judah, is leading the way. They are jealous. All right. And behold, all the men of Israel came to the king and said, why have our brethren, the men of Judah, stolen thee away? See, he's our king too. All right. Well, they could have been the first one down there to escort him over, but they didn't do it. Judah was. And so the northern tribes are always called Israel. And here we see they show up late, they feel offended, they're excluded, they're disrespected, they think, and they accuse Judah of stealing the king, bringing David across the Jordan without them, escorting David's household and soldiers without consulting them. Now, this is not a small complaint. This is the beginning. And this is what I really want you to get from this. And I never got this before until I studied this. This is the beginning of the nation of Israel dividing right here. Have you ever wondered why they divided? This right here. Right here. The northern tribes are always called Israel. Always. Israel's always the northern tribes. And I'm going to give you some more specifics in a minute. And Judah is always the southern tribe. And later on, after Solomon, the tribes are going to split. They're going to have a civil war, and they're going to split. But right here is where it all starts. Okay, so about this. So is before this battle was won with his son, was it Israel or Judah? Was one of them more for David than the other? No, I think they were pretty, pretty split, as far as like Absalom siding with Absalom, and David. But after David won, he's the king. It's not like I don't like Donald Trump and I'm not going to vote for him anymore. That's not how it works. Okay, this is the king. Okay, and you will be loyal to the king or you will lose your head. Okay, and so I think after it was all the dust settled and David won, then Judah was the first to act. The Judah and Israel weren't split before this. No, they are together. They are one nation. They're under one king, David. So Judah was the first to respond quickly, and really, if you remember, David really invited them, okay, because they're his people. Okay, listen, we can pretend all day long that we don't have people, but we do. Okay, I'm white. I got my people. Black, they got their people. We're all cultural. Now that doesn't mean I don't love black people, but I do. But we're all clannish. We birds of a feather flock together. So David's flocking with his people. I mean, let's just get real, right? And so he called them to come as my people. You're my people. Come, put me back as king. And he invited them to restore him as king. But see, Israel dragged their feet. Now they're mad. Now listen, let's get real. And how many times do we get offended? See, we do it to ourselves half the time. We're jerks. And then we get offended for being, but well, it was me that was the jerk, and then I get offended for that somebody, you know what I'm saying? They're jerks. They could have come down there. They could have been the first at the ferry. They could have been, but they didn't, and now they're all bent out of shape. So Israel's embarrassed. Their pride is hurt. And so now they're waving their finger at David. They're mad. See, and that's what happens. See, we get embarrassed, then we get angry. And then your mind the devil just starts taking it and twisting it and turning it into something that it never was. Yeah, because you're not humble. And so Israel's feeling replaced. And Israel had been the majority of David's army for years because they're bigger. They're 11 tribes, and I'm going to get into that, the tribe, but versus one tribe. So they had fought for him, they had bled for him, they had supported him, but now somebody besides them is taking the spotlight. I remember at a church years ago, and it was a good sized church that we went to for a while, and they asked Jeff to teach Sunday school. And do you know when the quarter was over, because you change classes every quarter, and the past Jeff noticed that, and he had the biggest class in the church, and yeah, the most demand for his class. Well, when the quarter changed and the classes changed, he noticed he wasn't assigned to any class. And yet he was the most popular teacher. So he went to the pastor and asked, and do you know that pastor? I give him credit. He told the truth. He didn't have Jeff on the roster because he was jealous. And he actually told Jeff that. And it was just Sunday school. So they're jealous. They see Judah taking the spotlight. But David had called out to Judah because they're his people. Now they're all his people. See what I'm saying? Black, white, Indians. And I've got a great plus grandmother that was an Indian, American Indian. She was Cherokee, and so listen. But still, the Indians are not my people. Okay, I have Cherokee in me, but they're not my people. White people are my people. Okay, it's Southern white people, exactly. Not northern white people. Not Yankees, just Southern. I'm just kidding. Y'all know I'm kidding, but you know I'm telling the truth. I mean, tribal by nature. Yes, we're tribal by nature. So here, David is tribal by nature. And here we go. It's the tribe of Judah. Okay. And so he called them out. He signaled Judah to come out. And so the northern tribes, they feel overlooked. They feel dishonored. They feel pushed aside, like their loyalty didn't matter. But they could have been the first to take him over the Jordan, but they didn't come out. And even when they did come out, only half of them came out. So their pride is wounded. All right. And because Judah's loyalty looks like favoritism. Okay, what you said, Barbara, what'd you say about you worked 70, 80 hours a week? What'd you do? You cleaned the bath. Did they pay you to clean the bathroom? All right, you cleaned the bathrooms on your own. You baked cookies. Did they pay you to bake cookies? No. See, everything you did was out of care and respect and loyalty for your employer. Now, what do young people do today? Well, I can't go work a job because I have to do this. Okay. Or I do work a job and I have no respect for my employer. I have no respect that they pay me a paycheck. Yeah. No, they're on their job doing this. Yeah. See, we need to be loyal to the person who pays us. We need to be loyal to the person who provides for us. That's called your parents. They work hard so you can have food in your mouth. You need to be loyal to them and not stab them in the back. So here, they're stabbing David in the back. They did show up, but Judah did. And now they're mad. So that's exactly what's going on. Israel is interpreting Judah's enthusiasm as David showing favoritism. Okay, Barbara, did your employer show you favoritism and they put you in charge because you were a slacker? But today we live in this entitled society. Well, I'm entitled to that government check. What makes you entitled? Have you ever paid taxes? I mean, seriously, this is what all this is about. They feel entitled because they had been there for David in the past, but they're not there for him now. So even though David didn't orchestrate it, he did call out to the leaders of Judah, and it's just the optics of the thing that looked bad. Okay, he wasn't trying to put them over Israel. He was just saying, "Hey, you're my people. Come and put me back in as king. You know, I'm one of you. And if Israel's not going to come, you know, you guys come and put me back." And so this was the spark that lit the fire that divided Israel. And see, what's important for us to realize all through the Old Testament, as we read, we're going to see Israel divided into two nations with two kings. But what's important to know about that is, what does the Bible say? A nation divided cannot stand. See, the United States cannot stand if we continue with this divide between liberals and conservatives. See, used to, the Democrats and the Republicans could come together, and they could work together, they could compromise, they could find things they were together on. I tell you, when you watch what's the national address, what do you call it? Yeah, is that right? State of the Union. The State of the Union address, it is disgraceful. Disgraceful. Those Democrats sit, that they won't even stand when they bring people, heroes that gave their lives, you know, for whatever, for to save somebody. Those Democrats sit there. They won't even stand up for heroes because they hate Donald Trump so much. They won't even stand up for their fellow man, for their tribe, and say, yes, you did something heroic. You did something great. That's disgraceful. And we cannot stand as a nation like that. We will fall. Yeah. And Israel fell. And right here's where they fell. This was the spark that lit the fire. And I got about 3 minutes. So you got Judah in the south, and you got Israel in the north. Verse 42, and all the men of Judah answered the men of Israel, because the king is near of kin to us. My people, he's near to kin to us. Wherefore then be ye angry for this matter? Why are you mad that these are my people? This is where I came from. Why are you mad? All right. Have we eaten at all of the king's at the king's cost, or have he given us any gifts because we are his people? Has he shown favoritism to us as the king? No, he didn't show any favoritism. So this is how Judah's mad. Okay, now Judah's fighting back, and they say David is our relative. He's from our tribe. He's our family. Of course, we went to get him. Okay, so this isn't just genealogy. This is tribal identity, honor, and obligation. Let me tell you something. You have an obligation to your family to some extent. Now, you might not have had a good daddy and a good mama, and I'll use Joyce Meyer's example, and then I've got to close. Her daddy raped her whole entire life until she was 18 years old. Her mother knew it. And you know what God called her to do? Now, she got away from them as fast as she could. And then she got saved in her late 30s or early 40s. And they got old. Those parents got old. And you know what she did? She said the Lord told her to buy a house for her parents and to move them close to her so she could take care of them. Guess what? She didn't want to do it because she did this. And do you blame her? Absolutely not. But see, God didn't let her off the hook. And he stayed on her until she obeyed. And she went and bought them a house, and she moved them from another state to where she was living and put them in that house. And she took care of them in their old age. I'm sure she hired people to take care of them and stuff. But I'll never forget, she said her mother called her and said she wanted her to come over. And she said, your father has been crying for 2 weeks. Pastor, your father has been crying for 2 weeks. Can you please come over here? She went over there, and her father was broken. and he repented and he gave his heart and life to the Lord. And for the first time in her adult life, he asked her to forgive him. Now, God didn't do that to hurt her. He did that to help her. He did that to free her. He did that to free her father from a horrible lifetime of sin. But see, those are her people. And she did the right thing, and she obeyed God, and she took care of her people. She honored her father and mother. See, if you poop on your parents, God's not going to look good at that. They may have been terrible to you. But see, by you honoring them as your people, as your tribe, God's going to see that and favor you. And he's going to say, yeah, now I'll do something. I'll do something in your life and I'll do something in their life because you honored me. And that's what all this is about. So next, I got to stop. So next week we'll continue, and you're gonna. This is going to be so important for y'all to get this and understand that this right here is where Israel divided. And guess what's going to happen? They're going to be taken over